only give sauce away to people who can potentially buy your product. Your friends, your family, all these guys should be buying sauce from you to help get the word out.
This is the Meat America Podcast, presented by Code 3 Spices, produced by Red Meat Lover. And now your host, Joey and Mike.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Meat America Podcast, presented by Code 3 Spices and sponsored by Grill Grate at grillgrate.com, Rockwood Charcoal at rockwoodcharcoal.com, and both of these can be found in retailers across the country. Also our sponsor, Ardent Spirits. Today we are coming to you from the catering kitchen of Sweet Baby Ray's here in Chicago. I'm here with my ho-ho homeboy, Mike Radosevich. I am Joe Lampy. You may know me as Joey Brisket or the Chief Beef Officer of redmeatlover.com or Red Meat Lover on YouTube. Mike is the co-owner of Code 3 Spices and Code 3 Barbecue Supply. And Mike, I will let you introduce our guest today.
Cool. Well, first off, Joe, it's fun to be in Chicago. I've really been excited about getting up to Chicago every time I come. Usually the only reason I come to Chicago is because of these two gentlemen to my right. I consider these to be the best guys in the industry. Dave Raymond, Sweet Baby Ray, Duce Raymond. I'll just start it off with this. Dave is hands down one of my favorite people. He's one of my best friends, and I consider him a mentor. I've learned
Ditto.
I've learned a lot from this gentleman, and I'm just happy to be here, Joe.
Well, so am I. I know that Sweet Baby Ray's has quite the name in the industry. If you've ever been out barbecuing at home and look for some incredible sauce to go with that, you've probably ventured down your store aisles and seen Sweet Baby Ray's on the shelves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been in business almost 8 years, and we're just now really starting to make a little headway in the barbecue sauce area of grocery retail. You walk down any aisle in America or any other country for that matter, you're going to see a ton of SKUs of Sweet Baby Ray's. It all originated here in Chicago. Dave, can you maybe start us off with how did this journey start?
We don't make it in the bathtub anymore, I can tell you that. Started back in 1982. I was a buyer for a pharmacy to fill prescriptions for nursing homes. Salesman came in. He said he made good ribs. I said, no, I made good ribs. He came back with a newspaper column. 3 days later, Mike Royko, a journalist that's since passed away, said he made great ribs, didn't understand why black people got all the credit for it. That's what begat the first Mike Royko rib contest. Dr. Barbecue, Ray Lampy, and I were down there that very first year in 1982, and my brother didn't come down there. The judges came 45 minutes late. My ribs were toasted, and so was I, as I told my story. But the following year, my brother came down, and we got ourselves more organized. We had such a great time. It was so much fun. 300, 400, 500 people out there smoking up barbecue in Grant Park. It was just an outstanding day, and we loved it. My brother had already moved up to Wisconsin, so the following year, we went from 3 cases of beer to like 13 cases of beer for our party, and all his friends, because he's in Wisconsin now, around Chicago came down, and my friends came down, and it became a bigger deal, and we wound up eventually coming in second place out of, there were 700 slots for people to be there. I think 500 people showed up, but I say we came in second place out of 700.
Well, that's pretty impressive, if you
Well,
ask me.
it is, and here's one of my first questions. Whatever happened to the guy who came in first and third? Any idea what they're up to today?
The guy that came in first, his name is Charlie Robinson, and he had a candy company in Oak Park at the time, and he wound up having opening up a barbecue place. And my first year at Taste of Chicago, which is the biggest music/food event in the country, he helped me out there, and I've known Charlie 35 years, and I would say there is no nicer man I have met in the food business than Charlie Robinson.
Well, that's an incredible story. That's absolutely remarkable. I sort of asked that question thinking you may not even remember who number one was. So to get that feedback and to see how, the story continues after the competition, not only to this table today, but...
So to let you know how it all goes around, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, he was going to be in Naperville Rib Fest which is the third biggest rib contest in the country. And he called Duce and I up and asked us how we go about doing that, because we have been at Naperville Rib Fest and came in first, second, and third place in 5 years.
Wow. Congratulations. Congratulations. So, Duce, how do you fit into the operations here at Sweet Baby Ray? Can you tell us a little bit more about...
Let me interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Can we go back, Duce, and just let's talk about culinary school and how it started from there.
Sure. So I grew up in the restaurant hospitality industry. My dad was a chef, and I started working for him when I was like 14 years old. Dave always likes to hear when I was drinking back in the day. I used to be as young as 7 years old that I was drinking for my dad. But I could flip an omelet when I was 7. I will say that. But anyway, so I've always been around the industry. Went through high school, working as a cook in restaurants and doing everything from coat check to dishwasher to busboy, and always decided this wasn't for me. I didn't want to work so hard. My dad was always at work, nights, weekends, and holidays, and that's not really what I wanted to do. So I went to community college for a year, really didn't like that idea, and then I moved out to Utah with some buddies, kind of, explored a little bit, and decided I wanted to be a chef. I went and worked under a female chef and got great experience at a California cuisine restaurant out there. Was the best restaurant in Park City during the 2002 Winter Olympics, and I lived out there. Then I came back. I didn't want to be so far away from my family, so I moved in with Uncle Dave and decided I was going to go to Kendall College Culinary School. Went there for 2 years.
At some point, hey, Uncle Dave, let's buy a smoker.
Yeah, right as I was finishing up the associate program, which is what most people do when they go to culinary school, they had released that they were going to do a bachelor degree program for culinary arts. So I was actually in the first graduating class of Kendall College's bachelor degree program, met my wife there, eventually moved out of Uncle Dave's place.
Not before, hey, Uncle Dave, let's buy a bigger smoker.
Right. And during this whole time is when the little restaurant that we're right next to in Wooddale opened in 2005.
Hey, Uncle Dave, let's open up a barbecue restaurant.
So we had a lot going on in those 5 years or so while I was at culinary school. But that's really what happened is Dave and I we always had, since I was a little kid, had a great relationship. And when I lived with him, there was some tough times in there, but developed a really, really good, strong relationship. He's not only my uncle, he's one of my best friends. He's my mentor. He helps me every time I have an issue. He's probably my first call because I've learned so much from him, and he's got my back. No matter what, he's got my back. And, we talked about restaurants, what we wanted to do. And, I thought I was going to be the executive chef right away, and he didn't see it that way. And that was, probably our first biggest fight.
That was the 10th beer around the fire pit about the third day he was out of school.
Yeah, and he was absolutely right, and I'm glad I didn't have that responsibility. And that was 15 years ago. And, I've learned so much in the last 15 years, and there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and you have to learn all those ways to figure out your way, because that's the only way in business that's going to work. There's so many different ways to do things, but you have to figure out the way that works for you and fits your decision-making processes, your goals, and everything like that.
Well, the one thing I'll touch on real quick is I met you guys, if you can believe it, 6.5 years ago. So we've known each other for 6.5 years already. Fred Gross made an introduction when me and Chris were up here talking to Jewel Osco. You remember that? We didn't even know where we were going. We were going somewhere to meet a guy named Dave. And me and Chris are sitting down in your office like, I think I know where we're at.
He was a pellet guy, Fred Gross, right?
He had those compact wood cubes.
Yes.
And
Mojo
bricks. Yeah.
Oh.
Mojo bricks. A good product, actually. But what I was getting at was, though, I've had the opportunity to really become close to you guys over the years. And you had just touched on that, and Dave, you're a pretty humble man. You're a very humble man, but, you're sort of known in our industry as sort of the godfather of helping people out along the way, and it's, I know what our relationship consists of, and you've been terrific for me. I mean, you're an inspiration to me for one, but the thing that I'm most thankful about you is your heart and what you do outside of the world of barbecue and the way you live your life and the way you treat others. And, I think that's something that everybody watching this or listening needs to know off the bat. You're one of those very uncommon people that have worked their asses off their entire life to get where you are. And that humility that you have, it's very infectious to other people. And I just want to thank you for that and just tell you I love you right off the bat. I tell you I love you all the time, but I want you to fully understand that I love you, buddy. So,
Ditto.
So go ahead, Joe.
Explore the methods and recipes for cooking meat in restaurants across America as we showcase experts on location in their restaurant kitchens to educate, inspire, and entertain. Tune into our travel cooking show, Meet America, only on YouTube and redmeatlover.com.
Duce, as you're speaking, we've interviewed quite a few successful people on this podcast, and one of the things that always strikes me is how often real success is happening in partnerships. It's really no longer the domain of one person. I know, Mike, you got Chris at Code 3. We have Bear, a.k.a. the Wizard, behind the camera over there, who makes me look about as good as anyone could. So I'm really struck by that, and the teamwork that it takes to make others successful, along with kind of, you talked about the relationship, and I think we all go through that as we work, whether it's a business relationship or personal relationship. I'm struck by the analogy of how we make steel, and it's a process of going through fire and then water that really makes the steel strong and sharp and allows it to cut through objects. So I sort of observed that, and wanted to allow you guys the opportunity to talk a little bit more about, before we go back in time to where Sweet Baby Ray's has been, kind of what's in the future.
Wow. I mean, we're in tough times right now, so it's kind of hard. Right now, I'm focused on day to day, and with coronavirus, just change our business 100%. We were going down the path of having our best year ever. We were bringing on more people. We were growing, and now it's completely changed. So we've had to lay off basically everybody on the catering side except for a handful, and our little restaurant, however, is doing really good. Barbecue's great for carry out, and I've talked to barbecue guys all over our area and even the country that say they're doing really well in this environment, which is great. However, that wasn't the direction we were focused on, catering and growing that business, and now everything's changed. So I think we want to simplify and kind of tone things back and really focus on great barbecue. And then we also have another brand, True Cuisine, that we do catering. And that has been, a higher end brand, elevated, upscale. And now we have to kind of tone that down because I don't have the team to execute on some of those higher end events.
I heard you talking earlier. I mean, you're making deliveries. You're running the restaurant depot. You're doing this. You're doing that. And I think that's what really separates businesses from other business during these hard times is how you can't be proactive to something like this pandemic, right?
Right.
And all the other stuff that goes along with it. But you can be very reactive, and you can be reactive in a good way or in a bad way.
Right.
And that's something that me and Chris are sort of tumbling through right now because we just brought somebody else on board to sort of take some load off of us. But you're doing the right things, though, right? You're doing what has to be done to get to that next step or to the next day, like you said, day to day, right?
Right. I mean, the whole experience is unfortunate in so many ways, but Dave and I talk a lot about what are the positives out of this situation. And one of the positives for me has been that I've got to spend more time in the restaurant. As the catering company's grown, I've been in there less and less and less. And it's really been able to be in touch with the customers over there, work with the employees over there, and really feel good about the product we're serving and just be proud of what we're doing over there. And it's such a small restaurant that, if you work over there, you're not only working the counter and serving the food, you could do dishes and put the orders away and everything. And it's kind of like a microcosm of the whole business. We all got to work together to make sure we're serving the best barbecue we can. And it's been, I feel like very blessed and grateful that I have a job. There's so many people in our industry that are out of a job. They can't work. And I really take that seriously and feel strongly that I'm blessed to be able to keep on working because I would go crazy if I had to be home the whole time.
And it's funny you said that. I mean, you just saw our new logo. I was telling you about this last night on your back porch. Our new logo is the Code 3 Spices, but community, gratitude, and loyalty. And you're talking about a lot of that gratitude right now. for anybody listening that's in the restaurant industry that might be a first-year person or third or fifth-year person, what are some really good advice right now for anybody? I don't care if it's food truck or restaurant or catering. What's some good advice you can give people out there listening?
Analyze your business. I mean, going back to 2008, 2009, when we had that financial crisis, I was actually in Murfreesboro, and I met Tuffy Stone from Cool Smoke, and him and his wife are trained chefs. They had a very upscale, fine dining catering business, and he mentioned to me that this will be the fourth recession that he had gone through. And I was literally crapping in my pants in those days. Oh, you can make it through one of those things. So literally, I would say since 2009, we have reanalyzed our business 4 times, trying to somehow we did not recover like other businesses recovered. So the first best thing you can do is reanalyze your business and go over every line item by line item, and I think the simple word that Duce and I are trying to put together for what's going on now, trying to streamline our business so we can survive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we can survive not talking about the restaurant, I'm talking about the catering business. We want to survive to fight another day, and we thought our best strategy for that would be to streamline, go back to the basics, what we know best, and that's kind of where we at. And before Duce gives his opinion, I want to say what an absolute pleasure it is for me. We've actually shared office space now for 16 years. So for probably 4 or 5 years, I've been encouraging my nephew, and he's been so nice to not say, "Yeah, I know, Uncle Dave, you told me about 5 million times already." He does not say that to me, and to have that type of, like he said, he knows that I'm for him, and I'm for us, and I'm for every employee that we have and their family. That's responsibility. That's what I feel bad is all the people that were part of our plans, part of our future, that aren't working now, and if we can get any of them back, they have to be looking for work. They have to be looking for other opportunities, and it's a massive loss for us, both in human relationships and trained professionals. So it's I can only imagine it's bad for everybody every way. Any way you look at it, this is a bad situation, and the only expectation I have on myself is not to make it worse for me or other people, and to have a good attitude. And seeing Duce, how he handles his life, how he handles his family, how he handles our business, that is a giant blessing for my wife and myself, and that's how I'm getting through this. The virus is I take my dog to the woods 3 times a day, and I talk to this amazing young man who I couldn't be more proud of and more pleased of on any level you want to talk about.
Well, yeah, you can hear the mutual respect you have for one another. And just to reaffirm for our audience, Duce, you are Dave's nephew,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you talked about what a terrific partner and mentor Dave has been for you. And this is where I maybe want to jump back a little bit in the story. We talked about going forward and some of the challenges, but, growing a company of any scale, much less the size and scale to which you grew Sweet Baby Ray's, definitely has some challenges. Can you talk to us about some of those challenges you had early on, going from that first barbecue competition to growing it? And there may be many, but for someone who's listening at home that's maybe thinking whether it's their own spice or sauce company, Mike, I'm sure you don't want the competition out there. Dave, neither do you.
Welcome it.
But for someone who's just looking to grow their business, and what kind of advice do you have for them based upon what you've seen along your pathway to success?
My email address is dave@sbrevents.com. Call me, tell me what you're thinking about. I can pretty much assure you'll stop asking questions before I stop trying to answer them.
Wow.
I spent a good portion of the last 15 or 20 years trying to be some type of encourager and mentor to people, and lots of people with barbecue, but pickles and jelly and
Mustard.
that's a longer story. So I literally, here's a good one. I literally started Sweet Baby Ray's. We made our business plan from Sweet Baby Ray's out of a friend of mine named Joe Mama. He had somehow he went to college with somebody, or he had a business plan from a wheelchair company. So I'm thinking, wheelchair, one item. Barbecue sauce, one item. So that was the template for our very first business plan. So that's how basic we were, and I was even more basic than that. I started Sweet Baby Ray's with $2,000, barely a high school education, and a dream. I grew up in the inner city of Chicago. I was as dysfunctional as anybody could be. My mom was married 5 times. I went to 8 different grammar schools. I was the last white kid on the block in 2 different neighborhoods. And so we got past all that. I had Duce's dad was my original business partner. Then about 3 years into that, we took on a good high school friend of mine that I played a lot of basketball with. And that's when it really went from a hobby to a business. Prior to that, I would go out. Well, my brother, the chef strategy was load up the sauce, load up the van with sauce, and don't come home till it's all gone. So I had same guy, Joe Mama. He had an older brother that was in the food broker business, and he wound up taking me out and introducing me to the broker network. And he told me, well, you could do that, or we could make a few visits to a few different brokers, and instead of making 400 calls, you could make 40 calls. I likes that. So that wound up being the winning strategy for us. So as we got going, it just became super challenging. I thought I liked barbecue, so that's well. Whenever you go into business, you have no resources, so you wind up having to not do everything, but learn everything. So lots of challenges when you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easy when you have a reasonable idea what you're doing, but when you're just winging it and you have a partner and he's winging it too, and you're not thinking the same way. I was telling Joe earlier that it's great to have a partner to work through your problems with, or be strong where you're weak, and it's very beneficial. And it's also, when things are good, if you're the only one there, they're not so good if you're the only one that knows about it. So I am all about having partners, and even more than partner, team. I mean, that's how we look at our employees, as a team. If we work together, we can beat guys better than us. And if we don't, those guys that work better, that do work as a team, they will beat us. And I got a lot of positive feedback learning how to play sports as a young kid in a bad neighborhood, and that's what I learned. If you play as a team, you can beat guys better than you, and that really floated my boat. It's one thing to win, but to be able to beat guys better than you, and kind of a lot of that wound up being our business strategy. And then I would say we have core and family values, along with my Christian belief structure, that has really taken over the last 12, 15 years, I'd say. But right from the beginning, we always tried to do the right thing for the right reason, every time, no exception, knowing that wouldn't happen. But if that was our goal, that would give us the best chance. And it was never, just like it is with Duce and I now, it's not what he wants, it's not what I want, it's what's in the best interest of our company and our employees and their family.
It's incredible. There's a lot to unpack there, truly, in terms of belief system that guides the business. And I'm sure we'll get to some of that here in a minute. One of the questions I'm sure everyone listening is wondering, I know it's something I've wondered myself, is your name is Dave Raymond. So can you tell us how you came up with the name for Sweet Baby Ray's?
I was awarded the name for my basketball play. All you have to do is read the back of the label. So my last name is Raymond. Most of my life, I was 100 pounds less than my brother. I managed to narrow the gap as I tell my story. Our last name is Raymond. The black guys called him Ray. I weighed a lot less than him. They called me Baby Ray. And for my baseline jump shot playing basketball, as in That's Sweet Baby Ray.
I love it.
Awesome, isn't it?
So the sauce was created for the name, and the rest we say is history. I will say, over the last 25 or 30 years, I had to explain to people very, very many times that there's more than one reason for the name Baby and Sweet Baby Ray, which is I've grown accustomed to having my way, and I can be a big baby if I don't have my way.
So one thing I want to touch on is, like, I know how much sauce me and Chris move every week or every month, right? I don't even think people listening are going to be able to comprehend this. How on your best years before you moved out of Sweet Baby Ray's, you know, whenever you sort of gave rights over to, we could talk about that if you want, whatever. But how much market share did you have in barbecue sauce? And then where is it now?
When we started, we sold one bottle, and I gave away a whole lot of bottles before I ever sold one bottle. And that's one lesson I've given to Mike and everybody else I know. Only give sauce away to people who can potentially buy your product. Your friends, your family, all these guys should be buying sauce from you to help get the word out. And then on top of that, I was like so proud of hey, have some free sauce. Ain't I a great guy? I have my own barbecue. You can have a bottle too. You know, and the point is, you're supposed to be generating revenue, not making yourself feel good. So
Right.
it took me a long time. Even with all my partners' help in that, it still took me a long. Hey, Mike, how about some sauce? You need some. Take a bottle for your
Right.
girl. So that was like a big deal just to get past that stuff. And now I've forgotten your question.
Well, I mean, basically, it's the amount of sauce.
The market share.
The market share.
So I think our last year, 2001, when we were in business, like 18 years, I would say that year we sold $33 million in barbecue sauce. I'm pretty sure I sold more barbecue sauce than anybody else in the country that year, said the boy with no humility at all. And we had maybe a 6.5 share of the market. As I sit here today, Sweet Baby Ray's is a $560 million brand. They have a 46 share retail, which is far more than Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola,
Wow.
Tropicana orange juice,
incredible.
Heinz
Really is.
ketchup, French's mustard, A1 steak sauce, Oreos. So it basically doesn't have any competition. That's what that is.
It's just really, really incredible.
Well, somehow people like the flavor profile. I would say flavor profile and priced fairly, more than fairly. And we knew from almost the beginning that if we tried it, we would get our share of repeat business. So that was the goal to create. Have a free bottle of barbecue sauce. It works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers the question. I just sort of wanted to paint a picture for everybody listening. You know, I mean, this isn't a couple thousand pallets, guys. This is tens of thousands of pallets of sauce. It's just incredible. You know, and the other thing is, too, I know that one of the successes for you guys was when you got into the bulk market game, at least from some of our past conversations. You know, I know you had sample bottles.
When we sold our business, we were 38% food service, and the rest was retail. So aside from all the retail sizes, which there's a lot, and flavors, which there's a lot, and food service, they had 4 1-gallon cases, 5-gallon buckets, 55-gallon drums,
Wow.
and 400-pound totes.
Yeah.
No rail cars.
No. So fast forward. So we talk about all that sauce. What was the transition like from selling the company and then moving on? Was that a tough transition for you and the guys?
Oh yeah, the day we sold the business, my business partner Mike O'Brien sat in a bar for about 7 hours drinking. We were so discouraged and depressed. I did feel good about leaving $100 tip at the bar, though. and then when it went from bad to worse after that, the first year I went on like 9 or 10 vacations. with people who weren't my friends.
Yeah.
Because all my friends were still working their butts off. So here I was just doing nothing for anybody but myself, and my friends were still working their butts off, and I had like no self-respect for myself. But there was my nephew, not, hey, Uncle Dave, let's open up a restaurant. Here comes that respect, and for sure, specifically barbecue. I mean, we went on to all the major markets to go on. We had the most outstanding time on a Texas barbecue tour, where we went to 29 places in 5 days and ate in 18 of them and found out what great barbecue was. And we've been to Memphis for barbecue. We've been to the Carolinas for barbecue. We had a lot of barbecue together. So that's been the pinnacle for me, was growing our business with my nephew and our team.
Oh, that's a good time to kick it back over to Duce. You know, there's not a lot of trained chefs in the barbecue world. I've met a couple of them. You have Rob McGee at Q39. I think we're going to have a discussion later today with another one. But when you went into culinary school, did you have the idea of getting into barbecue with Dave's background, or was that just a passion to follow, you know, some childhood inspiration and a passion for cooking? And as a follow-up to that, how do you take your culinary degree and marry it with everything that's happening in barbecue right now?
Going into culinary school, it was for sure in the back of my mind, you know, and every time there was a project or some special thing that you could customize, I always geared it towards barbecue. You know, I wrote a 10-page paper on regional barbecue in America and learned a lot that way. So I always had it in the back of my mind. There was not a lot of barbecue classes in culinary school, especially when I went now. I think it's more popular. I think they're teaching it a little bit more. So a lot of what I learned about real traditional barbecue was stuff we did learn in Dave's backyard, and then going to the different regions around the country. Because barbecue, to me, when I grew up, Dave and my dad did it on a Weber grill. They had the big, they call it a King Ranch. And they cooked ribs with charcoal offset on either side and a little bit of hickory wood to get a little smoke flavor, but it mostly tastes like charcoal ribs. And that's what was real barbecue ribs to me.
Right.
And that's what I grew up with, not knowing how to cook low and slow pork shoulders and briskets and everything like that.
If I could just interrupt for a second,
Yeah.
He's an absolute barbecue expert from the competition barbecue team that we had for 10 years. To me, that's what brought it all together for all of us is being in the competition world and meeting all those fabulous great cooks.
Right. So that's a good point. Is I've kind of learned in every aspect of barbecue. I've done barbecue restaurants, barbecue catering, ribbing, which is the big barbecue event, which is a whole nother beast of its own, and then barbecue competitions. And you pair that with classical, you know, French culinary training. There's a lot there that I can draw on when I'm cooking barbecue.
Well, and I've had the opportunity to eat your stuff a bunch of times, whether it was in BBQA or up here or whatnot. And I mean, you definitely got it going on. The one thing I want to mention is I know a few years ago you were hot and heavy on the competition scene. You know, you sort of took a back seat to sort of concentrate moving forward with what mattered or with certain priorities, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you want to sort of touch on that real quick? Because I think that'd be a good thing for people to listen to or at least try to understand, you know, because there's a lot of people in our world that, you know, like my business partner, Chris, we've got our timing down perfectly. But, you know, he started doing more SCAs. You know, he's not gone for 4 months every weekend now, you know, like he used to be. So we're getting more things done. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure. Barbecue competitions are a real commitment. They take a lot of money and a lot of time, and you can get all consumed. In 2015, we were running strong here on catering, but I lost focus, and I focused too much on barbecue competitions. Now that year, we did about 6 or 8 competitions, but I put everything all into it. The following year, we did less. We did 5 competitions, and we ended up RGCing twice and took third once, and they break it down like from teams that did 1 to 5 competitions. We were the top team in the country that year. And
Said the boy with no humility.
And it can consume, at least it consumed me when I was focused on it. I mean, you can spend time, getting the perfect briskets and, getting the best pork shoulders and the best ribs and the rubs and the injections and everything. And it's not what pays the bills for us. So, the last 2 years, I haven't done any competitions, and it's tough because I love that. I love being with all those guys, and
it's just such an awesome community.
Yeah, it's a fun atmosphere and everything like that. But I know that that's not what I needed to do for my family, for my business, and things like that. So, do I miss it? Yes, but not really, because I know what I need to be doing right now. But it's a lesson. Everyone's. Maybe other people can. I can't say that word. Compartmentalize
Gotcha.
better than I can. But it's like if I'm in something, I'm all in.
Right.
And I'm talking.
You've
I'm
heard
calling.
that before, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm calling people. And how do you do this? I mean, I got on the phone with you. Mentioned Malcolm Reed. He walked me through how he does stuff,
Yeah.
and what temperature he pulls different meats off. And cooking competition barbecue is the opposite of cooking barbecue in the restaurant.
And a lot of people don't understand that.
No.
They don't
Yeah.
understand that at all. You see a lot of reviews on Yelp or whatever it is, like, oh, it was dry, or the seasoning was off, or there's no heat and there's all sweet and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I wish people had a better understanding, Joe, of the difference between competition barbecue and restaurant
I
barbecue.
think I can explain that. A restaurant cooks more in a week than a competition guy cooks in a year.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's very process heavy.
And they get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very process heavy, as we've seen with our Meat America travel cooking show. We've been in the back of some pretty well-known barbecue places where they're kind of walking through their process and just getting it all teed up and ready to serve the masses at 11 when the doors open, and continuing that throughout the day takes a lot of work. The other thing I'm really struck with, as Duce spoke, is the number of people that we've talked to, Mike, who have had their journey to success start a competition barbecue. Dave, you talked about yours. That story is really mirrors real closely to Meathead's story too, about how he started the website. It was just him and another guy cooking some ribs, and he wanted to have the website to put him up there. We had Malcolm talk about his journey starting at the barbecue competitions, and talk about a lot of fun. He was, I think, building keg walls is one of the walls that he told, one of the stories that he told us.
Yep.
But eventually, someone said, "Hey, I'd like to buy some of that rub," and so I don't know. It's just really interesting to kind of hear the parallels and all these different stories from really successful people.
So go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to throw Famous Dave in there. He's another Chicagoan, grew up on the near west side of Chicago. And, I mean, as big of a guy as he is, he 500 stores, $500 million in sales. And I've seen him at multiple competition classes taking 20 pages of notes. 20 pages of notes, Famous Dave. And
you want to talk about another guy that's filled with humility.
And he's got his own competition team, and those boys are on point. It's not like the restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, Duce, you talked about it. I mean, Dave, you shared your email address. I mean, that is, just a sweetheart of a move. I'm still kind of taken back from your willingness to help in such an open way. We talked about humility. That's where I met you, Mike, was at NBBQA, National Barbecue and Grilling Association annual convention. I have a background in real estate. I've been to a lot of real estate conventions, and it's everyone walking around with suits on, trying to look good. A lot of big egos in the room, right? Not so much a willingness to share information because they see information as a competitive advantage. And that's one of the things I was really struck with at NBBQA and meeting you and everyone, not just there, but really since then, is the willingness to share and help, I think, is really, truly incredible. Now, I've heard that line basically stops when it's time to turn in the competition barbecue, right? That's the only time it really stops, is when it's turn-in time. But it's been really, really neat to see and experience.
Well, I think one of the things is, we've been in business almost 8 years. Dave's been a very intricate part of the amount of success that Chris and I have had. And it's inspirational in many facets, because when me and Chris end our journey, I mean, we're starting to see it right now, Dave. You've inspired me and Chris to start helping people. And we don't even know everything yet. We're getting through it. We're learning as we go. But it's nice to be able to I don't know if you want to use the word mentor, because we're just sort of helping people out that are coming to us. But I mean, that's what these guys are. I mean, I'm going to use the word humility again. Do you get more out of the mentoring, Dave, as far as self-satisfaction than anything else?
Oh, both because of how I grew up and because of the people I admire and respect. And I'm ready to interrupt you so I can talk about Mike Mills. When I sold the business and didn't have anything to do, that's when I first started paying attention to barbecue. And Duce and I started going on these barbecue trails and tours and regions. And I wound up reading Mike's first book, Mike and Amy's book, Peace, Love, and Barbecue.
Awesome book.
And that just opened up my world. And I tried to contact Mike, and he still uses snail mail. So I got Amy, and I couldn't believe that Mike Mills knew what Sweet Baby Ray's was, and Amy probably exaggerated and said that he was a fan. Really? So I'm off driving down to Murfreesboro to see my good buddy, and when I met Mike, I don't know Mike as a great barbecue cook, although I do know him as a legend and the most respected guy in barbecue. But my experience with him is very much a human relationship, and from the very beginning, I saw him encouraging the smallest of people. He doesn't go to the biggest of people and share what he knows about barbecue. He goes to the smallest of people. I've seen him at the convention many times. Is this your first year here? He goes to the people he doesn't know, and I absolutely love it. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I do. He doesn't try to tell anybody their business, and he's happy to show them how he does things. And I mean, as it pertains to barbecue and other things as well, I would say I got a lot of my inspiration and motivation from Mike Mills and the people like him.
He's a legend. He's a living legend.
For his humanness, every bit as much as whatever he might have done in barbecue.
Absolutely. And we're going to try to have him on the program down the road here. I need to get hold of Amy.
He's got a great voice for radio.
For sure. He does.
He's not too far away from your office.
He's about an hour and a half from us. We're down I-55 at mile marker 15 is where we're at. So we're not far away from you guys. And I think Mike and Amy are, hour and 20 minutes maybe. Not a long ride at all. But when we have them on, we need to get you guys down so you guys can reconnect.
I mean, he is so unbelievable. He lives in this small little town, Murfreesboro, and they have this big barbecue event every year. And what are you having it in Murphy? Come to Chicago, you can have hundreds and hundreds of people. Go to any city you want, you can have hundreds and hundreds of people. And Mike says he likes to have it in Murfreesboro because he likes Murfreesboro, and it's a small little town. And if he could encourage anybody to move down there, that would just be great. Okay, Mike, let's go to Murfreesboro. I mean, he's just that great of a guy.
Well, I mean, I can speak to that a little bit, because me and Chris are shops in my hometown that I grew up in, and we have so many people from our community support us. I'm sure it's just.
Well, you are unbelievably impressive in your own right, which is part of why I have the relationship with you. You're a small town kid that chose to stay in his own small town.
What do we have here? But keep on talking.
And then you open up a restaurant, your business on Main Street in your small town, and then you and your partner put on this big public event that brings thousands of people to this small town. And then I look around and I say, this is a pretty nice small town, and how credible it is that you choose to stay there and participate. And that's one of the reasons why we're such good friends. You have a good value system.
I appreciate that, Dave. It's our town.
Well, I want to leave one thing off too, or I think Dave left one thing off that I want to mention that I know you won't, that I was really surprised of because I see how much work, time, effort, and energy goes into that event. Code 3 Smoking on Main. Oh, I know, but you don't make $1 of profit from that. You give that all back to the community. And I think that's really impressive.
Well, the thing that, I won't go into the whole conversation Dave and I had last night, but Dave has a very unique way of bringing things to the table, allowing you to understand them from a different perspective. And that's something that I don't have a lot of in my life, So he made some really good points last night, but with everybody sort of adjusting and everything going on right now, I mean, that's a $3 million economic impact to our community, and thankfully, Dave, this is how awesome our community is. All the sponsors that we're going to sponsor this year, they're allowing us to keep the donations to go to the Food Pantry and U.S. Veterans Foundation. So, if there's anything that comes out of it, is we just, we've talked about this in prior episodes. I mean, and you talked about it earlier, doing the right thing, right, with those core values. And it's nice to impress upon people to give back and not just worry about themselves. So let's talk about what we got going on here, man. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, Duce, I wasn't expecting
I
this,
tried
man.
to show a little hospitality, and then I spilled all your drinks all over the floor.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to
With
follow
the
up
reserve,
with this. This was partially Dave's idea, and then I expounded it. But we always say the best bite of barbecue is burnt ends. It's kind of like they're so good, and so we got 2 burnt ends with a piece of cornbread, and then I did a little quick pickle. On the burnt ends is a little bit of our Texas barbecue sauce and a little drizzle of Duce's Wild mustard sauce. But just something I wanted to give you guys and have a nice taste.
You got to use the tools in your tool bag.
Yeah, you definitely have to eat with your hands. Dave's got a great barbecue song. I eat with my hands, man.
That's right. So I'm just going to pop one in, man.
Yeah.
Kind of smoke.
We use hickory wood.
Boy, it's sweet, but it's subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Got a great amount of smoke taste on it.
We use
Pop a jalapeno in there.
I have a Texas rub that we've developed, and it's mostly salt, pepper, garlic, a little paprika and cayenne, but it's heavy black pepper.
Well, you get the sweetness of that sauce, then you immediately hit that bark, which you can tell is so filled with seasoning. I mean, you talked about the burnt end. Now, everyone knows about the brisket. The burnt end really comes from the point, right?
Right.
And the point just has so much more fat than the flat.
For sure.
And I think, especially with people being so health conscious these days, they really don't know that fat is where, well, not only brisket, but all proteins in general tend to get a lot of their flavor. So as you're biting into that, it's so tender, so soft. You're getting those juices coming through, man. It's incredible.
Excellent.
While all that
Lights out.
stuff is true, at the end of the day, for me, tenderness. Now, if you get it cooked right, how it tastes, that's a difference. That's a matter of opinion. But most people would agree on cooking it properly. And at the end of the day, I think steak, barbecue, tender. If it's tender, you got a bigger advantage than if it tastes better. Because taste better is going to be subjective, but tender is not subjective.
Well, let me ask you this, true or false? Restaurant barbecue, a lot of it has to do with the equipment you're using. Because, I mean, I have been to restaurants that have, you can tell it wasn't fairly good restaurant equipment.
Right. There's no competition person that could make as much barbecue sauce on his pit in a week than he cooks all year.
Right.
You have to have the metal box cooker with the rotisserie that's going to keep moisture dripping and be able to cook 1,000 pounds of meat at one time.
Yeah. I want to I want to just mention to our audience who may not know, Duce and Dave had, gone out of their way to arrange for some beers and some bourbon to be here. So I want to say this would taste really good with a nice glass of Woodford Reserve. I think we're going to blame that spill on Mike, though, right? That's where we're pointing the finger on this. So thanks a lot, Mike. Really appreciate that. I just want to make sure our audience at home kind of knew the backstory.
You can see it on Mike's story. He posted a picture of it before it hit the ground.
Yeah. Go to Meet America on Instagram stories, and I'll save it.
Yeah,
before we leave today.
Well, this food is looking great. I know we're coming up on time. Mike, I know you know both of these gentlemen extremely well. Is there anything, other questions or anything else you think that we haven't talked about? I mean, look, I know when it comes to a guy like Dave, especially with his history, there's a lot to cover that we just can't do in an hour. But is there something else that you think the audience should hear or know about before we get ready to sign off?
Yeah, I think the best way I'm going to put it is throughout your journey in life, you meet a lot of people. And I'm a big believer in law of attraction. I believe God puts people and your lives for whatever reasons. And God has definitely put these two people in my life for not just professional or business, but just human relation as well. And I'm just very thankful for the both of you. Like I said, you know, I'm forever grateful to both of you. Your friendship, Duce. I know you got my back. I always got your back too.
For sure.
And I always got your Uncle Dave's back as well. I love you like a big, big brother, Dave. You know, and to see a man that's accomplished as much as you've accomplished, and some of the obstacles that you've overcome in your life, it is truly inspirational. And you know, I just think when people listen to this, I want them to get the idea that, you know, the majority of people that we're going to have on this podcast that are this successful, there's much more to them than just a success.
Well, I think if you were listening to either one of these gentlemen speak today, you would know that it's not so much about the numbers as it is about the people. That's the one thing I've heard today. And just want to acknowledge you both for that. You know, Dave, your offer and email was just beyond, you know, next level hospitality. So, you know, to everyone listening at home, we really hope that you enjoyed our podcast today. If you did, you know the drill. Go ahead and give us that big thumbs up like if you're watching on YouTube, or even better, subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to the audio version only, the biggest compliment I think we could all receive here today is that you head on over to iTunes, rate it 5 stars, and give us a positive review. Beyond that, I just want to thank everyone again here for their time today. I look really forward to finishing the rest of what's on my plate. And please continue to follow us as we meet America.
And not only that, let's tell them, if you're up in Chicago, where are they going to find you guys?
Well, our restaurant's in Wooddale, so you can find us online at sbrcatering.com, and we have, you know, see us on Instagram, SBR Catering, Facebook. It's all the same.
Dude, those are some of the best burn-ins I've ever had.
Thank you.
I'll probably be trapped like a rat in my house for the next few months.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I love you guys to death, and thanks for watching us here on Meet America.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one.
Subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel at redmeatlover.com and learn more at meetamericapodcast.com.